Well, good morning. Welcome to our show. Glad you're all here. Hey, so at Appian, our goal is to make BPM simple, and that's it. That's what this show is about. That's what everything we do is about. We're here to make BPM simple. Every year at this event, we release a bunch of new functionality. That functionality is pioneering. It's innovative. Every time we're going to try to cut some new ground open for you. Our intention here is to have some industry firsts among the things that we show. You know, back when it mattered, we were the first with thin client. And then later, we were the first in the cloud. We're still the best. After that, we were the first with mobile devices. Still the best. And we're still the first and the only to put data at the very center of a BPM platform. I could go on, and I will, but a little bit later in the talk, I want to start by sticking with our theme, which is simplicity. You know, some great things happen when you make BPM simple. For one, more people use it. Today, you're going to see an interface that is so streamlined, so focused and simple, that I think that within a few years, it'll be the primary way that people access the Appian platform. Another great thing that happens when you make BPM simple is that more people develop more applications. And today, you will see an interface that is so efficient, that is so intuitive, that even a citizen developer can make their own application in 15 minutes. In fact, all of you will make an application by yourselves before you leave this conference. But the very best thing that happens when you make BPM simple, better than all the rest, is that people succeed with it. They solve problems with it. They roll out systems with it. They address issues. They go places they couldn't have gone with software before. This is the best thing that we get out of simplicity with BPM. And those are my themes. That's what I want to talk about this morning, simplicity and success. I'm going to go through some stories. I want to share with you companies that have succeeded, and they've succeeded because we've made things simple. Now, Appian, as you may know, my clicker doesn't work. Appian, as you may know, is named after a road. Go ahead, show the road. There we are. Appian is named after a road, and let me tell you, this is a metaphor that just keeps giving. This is the Appian Way. This is the 2,000-year-old Roman road it's around Rome. It goes to Apulia. It's still in use. It's still perfectly well built. It was a macadamized technology. It's great engineering. Anyway, I wanted to start with a road. I wanted to start with the Appian Way because I'm here to talk about journeys, particularly customer journeys. You even saw it in that video a few moments ago. Customer journey is a buzzword these days, and like a lot of buzzwords, I think it becomes a little bit unclear what we mean when we say customer journey. So if you don't mind, I'm going to start by saying what I mean and what I think customer journey is. It's totally simple. I think it's just two things, very clean things. Number one, it means that throughout the experience that you have with each one of your customers, it's a long experience, right? It stretches through time. You have a lot of touch points. Throughout that experience, you need to know the entire history at that moment. You need to understand the customer at every moment. That's point number one. Point number two, you need to treat the customer in a special way at every point in the history. And that special way is defined by two things. First, what's unique about the customer, and secondly, what's unique about you. And it's that confluence of uniqueness that makes the special treatment, that makes the customer journey a success. So that's the two things that comprise customer journey to me. And it's not even all that difficult to provide them. All you need is unified information and custom processes. You would think that everybody would do it, but in fact, almost nobody does this. It ought to be simple, but it's not. You just need these two things. So I want to start this talk by telling you about a couple of companies that have succeeded at their customer journey, and they've done it with Appian technology. CME stands for Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They're a leading online platform worldwide, and they're also the top place to trade futures in the world, in addition to some financial derivatives. They have built an empire over the past 10 years. They've been buying up exchanges. So they started with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They bought the Chicago Board of Trade. They bought the NYMEX and the COMEX. Now they've got customers. They've got traders who are on their platform that may be a member of some of these, but not others. and they may add some because you have to be on a certain exchange to trade a certain security or a certain future. So they've got a lot of complexity in the habits of their customers. On top of that, they've got different kinds of customers. You know, they got customers who are institutions or individuals or corporations or brokerages or whatever. They've got a lot of diversity. And furthermore, there's different customer tracks that each one of these kinds of customers can be on. So you might imagine that their customer journey would look like a bowl of spaghetti. But in fact, it all makes perfect sense. Let's walk through it from the customer's point of view and experience what it's like to be a customer of CME. You begin with an onboarding experience. Now, typically, this might have been a pen and paper, fax it in, wait 2 weeks kind of thing, but not at all with CME. They're using onboarding as a differentiator against their competition. They know who they're competing for. These lightning-fast traders, right? These people want speed above everything. They want ease of use. They want to get to it. And so CME has made the onboarding experience, based on Appian, of course, as streamlined, simple, and non-redundant as it can possibly be. Now, let's say we're onboarded. Next thing, we're going to get a spot in the co-location facility. If you've read Flash Boys, you're going to love this. It means they've got a gigantic server farm filled with servers where you can host your trading algorithm in physical proximity with the server that runs the exchange. And you want physical proximity because it's going to shave a couple of milliseconds off your response time to any new thing that comes off the market. And if you're one of these traders, you want that. So we're going to get that. By the way, that entire co-location facility, that's run on Appian. The customer onboarding, the maintenance, the SLAs are run on Appian. You've got people driving around that server farm on golf carts with tablet computers running Appian, telling them which server needs to be maintained. The whole thing front to back, it's us. Now, let's say you want to look up your account. You want to change something. You want to know something. You could wait on a phone line, but why would you? Instead, you should use the self-service portal. That's running in Appian. You'll quickly get your information. You'll make whatever changes you needed, and you're going forward. We also run the issue resolution application, which works just like you would expect it to work, except because it's on Appian, it's very fast. So CME understands how to compete for their target audience. They understand what customer is taking this journey. And remember, I said the customer journey is the intersection of two unique things, a unique customer and a unique company that serves them. And in that confluence, you get a unique treatment that makes the customer journey a success. CME knows their customers. These customers are twitch fast. Right? They want to get on to their next trade. They want to react in real time. They don't want to be slowed down. So CME unified this process. The customer journey runs on a single platform. It runs on Appian. The responses, the knowledge, you never have to say the same thing twice. It's non-redundant, and it's as fast as it can be, and it's great customer service. And I know that they use this to attract new customers to the platform by being the easiest platform you could trade on. I've put 4 applications here just for illustration purposes, but it's not really 4. It's actually 23. And so the complexity of what they're doing and the diversity of experiences in their customer journey goes way beyond what I'm able to show you in this slide, but I've only got a few minutes. Aviva is the United Kingdom's largest insurance provider. You know, if you live in the UK, you know this, but their slogan is, everything we do is full of good thinking for you. And they've got an internal list of values. You know how companies list their values and put them up on a board someplace? Their #1 value is care more. All right, so if you're going to think about your customers, you're going to do good thinking about your customers, and you're going to care more about your customers, then absolutely you've got to know them. Right? #1, above everything, you have to know who you're thinking and caring about, and that's where Appian came in. So we were brought in order to comprehend the customer and treat them specially. Like a lot of successful firms that have experienced a lot of growth and risen to the top of their industry, Aviva had experienced a good deal of disunification. So you had the ops team running on one set of apps, and you had the pensions team running on another set of apps. And if you had a simple customer request, it wasn't so simple once you got on the inside of that operation. In fact, some normal customer requests they had to touch 17 systems just to get one normal customer request. And you would have to call back a few times. And by the way, that's everybody. Every company is like that. It's not just Aviva. You've all got this problem. If you grow, if you succeed, if you thrive, if you acquire, if you pivot, if you add operations, you have this problem too. It might not be exactly 17 systems, but you've absolutely got this. And Aviva knew that they wanted to address it. In order to live up to their brand promise, they attacked this. So they brought in Appian, and they consolidated systems. They did it in a radical way, and they took 22 systems, and they got down to 4. And those 4 are all written in Appian, so actually they're really symbiotic together with each other. Now, Aviva Here's on the slide, you can see the stages in Aviva's customer journey. These are clearly not all the stages, but there's some. The top two there, policy information and switch, those are things that used to be evaluated inside Aviva based on the time it took to get a customer off the phone, basically. And that's how most call centers today run. But they were able to reassert their values in these stages, and now their goal in both of these is to maximize customer satisfaction. They're getting a customer feedback score and evaluating themselves on that. Now my favorite is actually the bottom one, the gone away, because I didn't know this existed until I learned it from Aviva. Gone away means the process of tracking down beneficiary recipients who have moved away from their last point of contact information. So if you've moved away from your address and finally your pension comes due or your insurance is available, they don't just give up on you, they find you. And this is detective work, and they used to go through 9 different systems, and it was a spreadsheet-intensive process and a paper-intensive process. They would go through 9 systems, hunting you down, trying to find you so that they could give you a check. And if you think that's good service, wait, they spent money to upgrade the system. They upgraded that to a single system in Appian, and now it runs better, and it runs faster, and the detectives are more likely to be successful. This is clearly a company that cares about coming through for its customers. I'm proud we're working with them. So Aviva has transformed around the customer, has focused on the customer. They're delivering these stages in the customer journey in a generous and a unified and a streamlined way. They are 9 times faster now to handle customer requests. I mean, you would expect that, right? Because they went from 17 systems down to 4, and they went from, they're 9 times faster, and they went from 3 touches down to usually 1, and they saved 40% on their customer services cost at the same time as increasing their Net Promoter Score. Now that 40%, it seemed unbelievable. I had to go back and check, but it's true. The way they did that was by reducing and eliminating unnecessary systems, and by tripling the efficiency of their call center. Now they don't have to do 3 touches, they get it finished in just 1. So a great success story, terrific work by Aviva. Appian is for everybody, not just power users, not just knowledge workers, we're for everybody. And the way we're for everybody, we reach out with technology. We use the latest mobile devices. We give you clean interfaces. We make streamlined, simple interfaces that you can use even if you don't want to get training, and if you don't have time to understand the universe of things going on in your business and you're just focused on one, we're going to give you an interface that does that for you. We're for everybody. Here's some stories of companies that have succeeded unifying diverse user bases on Appian technology. Novartis is a giant pharmaceutical company, and they make a great deal of new submissions for drugs, for new pharmaceutical products every year. They decided to base this on Appian. Every year, Novartis submits 300 new applications to sell a pharmaceutical product to some national governing authority around the world. 300 major submissions. They also make 4,000 maintenance submissions. They do this in 150 different types, and it takes about 2 million individual documents per year. And Appian runs all this. They decided to turn to us for all this. By the way, every one of those submissions is actually exceptionally complex. First, you have to reconcile information. You've got some data coming from doctors in the field. You've got other data coming from your own R&D department. You have to weave this together in a way that makes coherent sense. You send it to different authorities who all have different standards, and then you're responsive. You have to respond quickly to their questions. Not only do you have to do this, but you have to be fast about it because the patent clock is ticking and you can't afford to waste any days. And you have to be good at it because health is at stake and reputation is at stake. So you have to be fast, you have to be good. This is a really difficult thing to pull off. And there's a monkey wrench in it, which is they had just rolled out a global, worldwide user portal. They'd invested in it. They'd trained a world's worth of employees on it. And their mandate to us was, give us all this functionality, but not a new interface. So this is challenging. As you saw last year, if you were here at the show last year, you saw that we announced a new way that Appian functionality could be embedded inside of somebody else's interface. And so we used that brand new technology in order to give Novartis what they wanted. Novartis, on Appian, rolled out a new application called Pulse. Pulse is now the authoritative source of information for data, for processes, for documents. They go to Pulse. Pulse gives them visibility into submissions in process and the next task that needs to be done. Pulse streamlines and it takes away the redundancy so they don't have to rekey information. It means they don't have to redo tests and trials because they've been done right the first time. It keeps everybody up to speed around the organization. It's running in 150 different countries right now, and everywhere it runs, it's running in local languages. So this is a really wonderful system. But the punchline is, people don't even know that it's a different system. It looks like part of the portal. It's just a streamlined element in Novartis's global user portal experience. Sometimes, to deliver a revolution, you have to take away all the friction, right? For Novartis, it would have been difficult to introduce a new interface. It would have slowed them down. We didn't want to do that. We found a way to work within their interface, within their world, within what their users were trained to understand, and that made us able to deliver this set of functionality for Novartis. In order to run a college well, or a university, like the University of South Florida, you have to communicate. You have to create communication between two very different groups of people, the students and the administrators. You have to guide students through a series of difficult steps in order for them to graduate, in order for them to learn well. You need to line them up. You need to get them to clear these hurdles, right? They've got to find a thesis advisor. They've got to register for a major. They've got to qualify for their graduation. They have to do a series of things, and they're new to process, so they don't really understand, and it's hard for them to interface with administrators. In fact, traditionally, this is done through pen and paper, faxed-in forms, real meetings that are scheduled weeks in advance. It's a complicated process. USF wanted to make it simpler, and so they turned to Appian in order to do that. They've created a system at USF, a really terrific system that can appeal to everybody. Now you can go online to check your status, to check your grades, to see where you stand as a student, to see if you've qualified for graduation, to contact your administrator, to switch or apply for a new counselor for your major or your thesis. It gives students at their fingertips a degree of control that they've never had before. It's a really revolutionary product. What I really like about this, well, I love how fast it rolled out. I mean, they intended to roll out phase 1 over 3 months, but the entire thing rolled out in 3 weeks, so they didn't have to worry about that plan. So this is very accelerated. Typically, in an organization, you've got communications issues everywhere there's a fault line between two user blocks. So let's say, for example, you've got one set of users who are on the road and they're speaking to each other in application A, and you've got another one for the executives, application B. You're going to have a communications issue. There's just going to be an evolving, emergent problem in not having the same information between those groups. This happens in basically every organization, but can you imagine how much it happens in educational institutions? You don't just have the people on the road and the executives, or the factory workers and the marketing guys. You've got truly different groups. You've got students who are using the latest mobile devices who don't even have a desktop computer, who want software that looks like they downloaded off of the Android store yesterday afternoon, and it's got to look glitzy and clean and fun, and otherwise they don't want to be trained on anything, they don't want to learn anything, they don't even know how an instruction manual works. And then on the other side, you've got administrators running probably some old hardware who don't have the time or the budget to be trained on that old hardware, but who want something that immediately makes sense and it's intuitive and still allows them to bridge this cultural gap to the students. So I'm proud that we were able to do that. We're running on mobile devices for the students. We're running on desktops for the administrators. We're now unifying not just the students and the administrators, but also the dean. So the same system is used from the top to the bottom in this organization. And if students want, they can send a request that requires the dean's attention, like say requesting a new advisor. That is a task that goes to the dean. She can take care of it on a handheld device or on her desktop computer, and it can go back in real time to the student, which is just an amazing experience for school. And it also goes to prove that these days kids truly do have it too easy. I mean, when I was in college, you want the dean's attention, you had to paint some signs and occupy her office. So, for any new technology, we make compromises. New technologies are great, we want to use them. Software is still relatively new in the scheme of things, and we are making compromises to use software. We're speaking in software's language. We go to a computer instead of generally having it come to us in order to interface with it. We write in code instead of English. we're definitely living in software's world, but I want to say that that's not always going to be true. After all, 100 years ago, we used to use a gigantic metal crank to start our automobiles. Ever seen one of these? Anybody ever used a crank to start an automobile? Like a Model T. You'd have to wind it up. People used to break their arms on this. I've researched it. There's on old car websites for people who are into this, it says, whatever you do, don't turn the crank on the clockwise downside or the thing will spin out of control and snap your arm. It was dangerous. It was difficult. And why did we do it? Because cars were great, right? I predict that 100 years from now, the way we deal with software will look as ridiculous as a big metal crank. But we're doing it because software is great. However, someday, software is going to live in our world. Someday, maybe the generation being born today, they're going to go to classes at school that teach them not how to program, but how to speak to a computer. And it'll be things like, keep your sentences clean, and be sure that there's a clear logical implication to the things you say. It won't be about where to put the semicolon. Someday, software is going to live in our world. And the first step in having software come to us and live in our world is this thing we're calling low code. Low code basically means a new way of creating applications. It means programming without code or without much of it. Programming by drawing, programming by configuration, by right-clicking, right? By things that are a little closer to the way we like to communicate and a little further from the way typically computers like to communicate. Because you know, the thing that you could explain to a person in 15 minutes would still take months to explain to a computer. So using low code, we're going to shift the conversation more toward our end, which is easier, but also it's a lot faster. So needless to say, at Appian, we love this. We love low code. We're all about this. We love drawing pictures to make applications. That is my personal favorite thing about BPM, so we are all over low code. Let's talk about some of the organizations that are using a low code approach to remake their enterprise. Bendigo Bank is the fifth largest bank in Australia with 1.6 million customers. Recently, they launched a new initiative led by the CIO and the CFO to reorganize the entire organization, to blur the lines, to take away the separations between divisions, and instead focus on the customer. Single effort, single database, single point of reference. They're going to be all about the customer and not all about their internal differences. It's a bold plan. I love it, actually. And I'm glad that they chose us to help them with it. They've been at this for 5 quarters, 15 months. In that time, they've rolled out 16 applications on Appian. But the thing I really love, I mean, that's good. That's good. They're more than one application GA per month. That's really strong. But what I really like about this is that these applications are serious. They're doing tier 1, customer-facing, mission-critical applications across the board. They're doing ATM management, credit card management, fraud management, disputes, loans, mortgages, merchant services. All of this is running on Appian. They got the bank running on Appian, right, across the board. This is a terrific, ambitious, and successful experiment in using low code to rewrite an organization. By mid-17, Bendigo's bank's plan is to have every last employee be an Appian user. When I was growing up, my father's a serious investor, and so his office used to be filled with publications from Janus. Once a quarter, they would ship a book that had deep statistics on every tradable security. And you could learn in there what their trend lines were and what their PDE and their special stats and so on. And I used to love those books. I love charts anyway, so I would flip through them just for fun. Of course, I couldn't trade any stocks, but I just loved the books. And so when we started doing business with Janus, it reminded me of that. Needless to say, at this point, that's all done online, and it's done within seconds. When trading ends, you can get it in real time. Even within minutes, they've got the derived statistics of mutual funds, right? So they're so on top of this data. There's no way you'd wait 90 days anymore for your next batch of stats. Janus has built a fantastic application called JTrack, which the guy who did it is here, actually. He's going to be speaking later. His name's Josh Seaman. I'm not going to spoil his presentation, but I will say that JTrack is efficient. It's centered on records. It reduces manual participation. It speeds things up, and it reduces risk. So I love all that. It's a great application. Stick around for Josh's presentation, hear what he's doing. The thing I do want to talk about is this one and done. This is an effort to build new applications there's only one rule. It has to finish in a single week. So using this low-code, high-acceleration application building concept, Josh and the team at Janus are cranking out single-week applications. This is exactly where we're trying to go. This is the vision. This is what low-code is about. It's empowering you to rapidly extend automation across your enterprise very quickly and easily. So that's exactly what we're trying to be. Simplicity is wonderful, and we believe in it. But it wouldn't mean anything if we didn't also have power. There's nobody else in our industry, nobody in BPM, and nobody in the larger industry that we're extending outward. You know, Salesforce can't make this claim. Nobody else that we compete with that combines power and simplicity like Appian does. So I want to take a few slides here to tell you stories of organizations that are using Appian in exceptionally mission-critical ways. DISA is the Defense Information Systems Agency. Their mission is to provide information superiority in defense of our nation. They take this very, very seriously. They do procurement. They have a system built to procurement on top of BPM. It has been, for the last 4 years, since they rolled it out in 2012, the largest procurement system in the government that is based on BPM. They built it on Appian naturally, or I wouldn't be talking about it. It's based on Appian, and it took what used to be 9 systems and a lot of paper-based work and a lot of personal meetings. It took 9 systems, boiled it down to 1. They've unified, they've streamlined, they've made it far more difficult for any kind of error to happen. They've standardized, and they've had terrific success with it. They've done 38,000 procurement actions on the Appian platform since they launched it in 2012. They've cleared nearly $2 billion of awards during that time. And they've cut their operations and maintenance cost by 50%. So it's been a tremendous success already. KKR is the world's best-known private equity firm. They practically invented the leverage buyout. In fact, have you read Barbarians at the Gate? This is these guys. But they're not barbarians. They've done $400 billion in private equity transactions. That is just amazing. $400 billion in private equity transactions. So these guys are masters of the universe in every way. So anyway, they've done a lot of deals, and they understand the science behind doing great deals. And the science almost always begins with getting the best information, having the best information. That's the foundation of any negotiation and any deal, and they know this. Today, when KKR does a deal, that deal is a record in Appian. And that record is giving them the information, consolidating the information. They're pulling it from SAP. They're pulling it from the field, from paper. They're pulling it from internal systems, third-party systems like Investran. They're bringing together the information. They're centralizing it. I'm really happy about this. And we're the platform on which they can refer to the deal-based data. Now, there's so much going on, right? You've got different facets of a deal that are exposed to certain people, but it's on a need-to-know basis. And yet, at the same time, as you have all that kind of splintering of information based on need-to-know, you've also, because these deals are secret, you've also got government requirements that are eventually going to force a mass disclosure of all this information. So there's this natural tension going on between the two constituencies, the many constituencies. You can imagine how difficult this was back when they used pen and paper, but with Appian it's actually gotten a lot better. Now they've got security, and you're using our security settings to offer different perspectives on information on a field-by-field basis to different participants and still have all of it available for the government when that's necessary. So anyway, KKR is doing some extraordinary stuff. They're bringing out records for new things. They got records for investor and records for funds, and they're bringing out new applications that will suit those records as well. But this is incredibly mission-critical stuff, and we're really proud to be entrusted with it by such a great firm. Why does it have to be so difficult to write software? Software is complicated. Everywhere you use software, somebody did a lot of work to put that software where it is. And as a result, software tends not to be used in places that it doesn't warrant a great effort. See, We think software should be simple. We think software should exist everywhere. Software should be easy to access. We want to lower that bar and introduce software to new places. We are obsessed. I think that's fair to say. We are obsessed with speed of development. Last year on this stage, or at this event rather, I announced that over the course of the next 12 months, we would endeavor to cut in half the time it took to build any application. So with that in mind, let me tell you what we've done. Imagine that you have an application that by conventional means would take 12 months to deploy. Now that same application you might finish that in Appian in 30, 60, or 90 days. Here, to be conservative, I'll graphically display it as 90. Our intention now is to allow you to build an application in 1 day. We want to make this so easy that citizen developers can explain the application they want to Appian in 15 minutes and be done. And we want the thing they build in 15 minutes to be powerful and complete and instantly usable. That is our goal. And so let me tell you, we are introducing right now, I'm tempted to put in the past tense because I realize we've been leaking this news through every possible medium for the past 24 hours. I meant this to be a dramatic announcement. Anyway, we are introducing, or recently have introduced, this concept, Quick Apps. Quick Apps is like an intelligent wizard that asks you a series of simple questions, and in 15 minutes, having answered those questions, you have a full working application. These questions are not going to be difficult questions. You will not have to be an IT professional to answer these questions. You will not have to look up any terminology. This is going to be straightforward and simple because we want to empower people. Our goal is to make BPM simple. So, 15 minutes of answering questions. What do you really get? Here it is. The center of the application that you create is going to be records. This application is going to be what we call a data-centric application, which means it's focused on collaboration around records, real-time access to information, and light structure to allocate responsibility and clear work, and then supervise and oversee what's happening in reports. So of course you're going to get the records themselves, but you're also going to get these other things. You're going to get reports and processes. You're going to get rules and feeds. You'll get 5 process models. In all, you'll get more than 80 objects in 15 minutes. You know, even an experienced Appian developer, seriously, an experienced Appian developer would have taken days to do this. So you're going to get all this. You don't have to be experienced. You get it in 15 minutes. So there are some fantastic advantages to building applications in this way, and let me run through them. This is the first time that I have ever recommended an Appian development interface for citizen developers, and I don't take that step lightly. I know, and you know, what goes wrong when you empower citizen developers to make applications inside your environment. In fact, let me list the ways, just so that you know that I know that you know, right? Okay, let me tell you what's going to go wrong typically when citizen developers start running amok. They build applications that take down your system. They build applications that contend for resources. They build loops that just eat stuff, right? They build residual applications that you can never get rid of, and they just hang in the background and accumulate in your memory space and in your data space. They disperse data to people they shouldn't have dispersed it to. They themselves, in the course of development, have access to data or even the knowledge of categories of data that they should not have known about themselves. And then when they're done with all that havoc, they then launch their own Splinter application, which people unfortunately like, and start using, and whatever they contribute to it, it lives and dies right there and is never contributed back to the whole and is never experienced by other people, and you've effectively decentralized the enterprise when you wanted to centralize it for things like customer journey, etc. Those are all the bad things that happen, right? When you empower citizen developers, that's what you get. I want to tell you we've thought about this. Our intention is not to just throw something out there and see if it works. We've thought about it, we've held back, we waited for this day for a long time. The reason we're doing it is because I think we have an answer to every one of those problems. First of all, when a citizen developer builds an app in Quick Apps, that app will run in a sandbox. If it works, that's great. If it fails, we cleanly, elegantly shut it down. It will not take down the machine. It will not eat resources. It won't spiral out of control. It either works or it snaps off. Very simple. The data that it had, oh, and by the way, if you delete it, it completely deletes. There will be no residual, no files left, no accumulation. The data that the developer has access to is entirely IT-approved data. They're going back to existing Appian records, and they're able to pull fields from those records, but that's all. So they're not inventing new data. They don't get to invent what EBITDA means when somebody else has already invented what EBITDA means. You will not have that kind of contention. They will go with your definition, your data records. They'll just be able to assemble it for their own purposes in a new application. They're not going to have access to any data that they wouldn't have anyway because we're applying security standards for all of their requests. They won't even have access to types of data or the knowledge of types of data that they're not supposed to have access to. We've totally covered this from a privacy standpoint. And then when it comes to breaking apart the enterprise into little applications, remember that every quick app is actually part of the Appian universe. It's pulling data from the center of the Appian operation. It's feeding back data to the center so nothing is lost. You will not be compartmentalizing your data, splintering people's efforts, or losing the fruits of their contribution because it was contributed to a quick app. This is really part of a whole. It's just empowering people to take the whole to the fringes. This, to me, is a big deal. To know what's wrong with citizen development and to overcome it, I think we've done something special here. This is for a new kind of application, a new kind of work that Appian didn't address very well in the past. Appian is great when you know all the steps, and the steps have to occur in order, and you're going to make a complicated process model to dictate the ordering. But this is good for more free-form work. I thought of this feature originally when I was trying to imagine how we would apply Appian to our own internal tech support team. Our tech support team is a relatively small, high-skilled team, and they know what to do. They don't need to be told what step 2 and what's step 5 and who's supposed to do what. They're right there and they're working. And furthermore, every new tech support case is such a unique creature, it's pretty hard to route it and have a machine tell you who should be looking at it next. So we had to back off a little bit on the step-by-step dictation and put emphasis elsewhere. We needed to emphasize access to common information, accountability in real time, oversight, reports, a collaborative environment, real-time participation. It had to be that kind of an application. I call that dynamic work. So not only is Quick Apps going to give you a new, fast way to build applications, it's going to address a new area of work that Appian has not been the best at in the past. And actually, I think this new area is bigger than the hyper-structured work that Appian has typically addressed. So I think in one stroke, we're not only making it easier, we're not only extending to new developers, we're more than doubling the amount of work that we can address as a technology. I'm very excited about this. This is the best way to start a new application. I mean, think about it. 80 objects in 15 minutes. No matter what you're building, no matter how complicated it's going to get, no matter how intricate, no matter how many stages, no matter how insane you hope your process model is going to be, you still want to start here. This is the jump start. This will save you days. Every application should start like this, starting today. And then when you deploy it, you can deploy Quick Apps directly to production. You don't have to go to test. You don't have to go to dev. You can go directly to production. It's this instant gratification tool. The reason we can do this is because it's running in a sandbox. If not, that'd be crazy, right? But because it is, because we've contained it, it's safe, you can deploy it directly to production. So your citizen developers are really going to be empowered now. They're going to be able to make their own app in 15 minutes and use it on the 16th minute. 1 year ago, I announced that we would make Appian objects callable from third-party applications, that we built a set of web APIs that allowed you to read from an Appian record or display an Appian report or query Appian objects from third parties, and that's great. We've got some of you using it right now. I'm glad you are. This is part of our long-standing effort to be great at integration. We've taken another step this year, and we now allow third-party applications to write back to Appian objects. So you can populate a record by making a call from a third-party application and change rules, et cetera, et cetera. You can now do the write back. We got full loop APIs. We've done a lot in terms of expanding the cloud recently. We got HIPAA certification last summer. We're proud of that. We got FedRAMP again. As you may recall, we were one of the first 24 companies in the world to get FedRAMP. Now we've got FedRAMP Plus, which is the DoD version. We've got FedRAMP 2. We're all over FedRAMP. On top of that, we're launching 4 new data centers in the near future: Ohio, India, Canada, the United Kingdom. These are coming on. I think that's going to be the order. UK will probably wait until early next year, 2017. Our cloud architecture now has a fallback. You can run 2 instances in the cloud, keeping data simultaneously up to date in both. And then if something happens to the first instance, you can fall back on the second one. This allows you to minimize downtime and eliminate data loss. We understand this is very important. We're using a lot of mission critical ways right now, so this is a critical feature. We're extremely proud of doing this. Oh, and by the way, you can do this within the same geographical area. So for example, if because of law or preference you want to keep all your data in one zone, you can still run multiple servers in the same zone and still have the fallback effect. It still works. Nobody is more serious about mobile in this market than Appian. You know that. We've got a long-standing commitment. We're on top of the latest mobile devices. We always make a show of it. We want your applications to be fresh forever. We've done some more things on mobile this year that you should know about. We integrated with Good Dynamics because mobile users are frequently concerned about security and they like to trust Good Dynamics, now owned by BlackBerry, to ensure by storing the data in an encrypted site. Well, we've got a good version of Appian, a Good Dynamics version of Appian that you can download and use in place of Appian, but it will use Good's encrypted information technology. We've also got remote usage, offline usage for Android this year. We've got barcode scanning built in natively. We have files, we have file search, a lot of things on mobile. I'm going to leave the details to Malcolm Ross, who's going to be doing a more extensive demonstration of our technology later today. We've spruced up our process modeler. It's a little sleeker. The graphics are better. And if you don't happen to love Internet Explorer, that's okay, because we run on every browser. Yeah. All right. We've done a lot to streamline deployment. Moving from dev to test to prod is difficult. And you know this, not just Appian. I mean, everywhere this is difficult. We've made it a lot easier. We've made change management. We've made big strides in change management. We've done a lot for automated testing. I'm going to leave the details to Malcolm on this, but if you're on the tech side, you're going to be impressed. We've put a lot of work into this. These are actually some of the biggest features we have to announce, but they're really so technical that I can't do them justice right now. But trust me, you're going to like them. A year ago, I introduced a new interface called Appian Sites that was for the single-purpose user. It was a single screen. The idea behind Appian Sites was that some of your users don't want the overload of knowing what's happening in your enterprise. They do one thing, they want to know about that one thing. So we had an interface that was just for them. Appian Sites has grown up. Appian Sites now has 5 tabs customizable across the top of the screen. Instead of the typical Appian tabs, reports, actions, news, tasks, instead of that, you pick the 5 tabs and each one of them just goes to one screen. Extremely simple. It's direct. And with 5 tabs, you can do a lot. So and it's very customizable, very sleek. It's great for a worker who has either one thing to think about or just a few things to think about and doesn't want the confusion, relatively confusing experience of the typical Appian interface. So here's what Appian Sites look like when you're clicking on one of those tabs. It's a report. You're using an Appian object. Somebody asked me yesterday, because they found out about this in advance, somebody asked me yesterday whether this would be a high amount of overhead because they would have to build new objects to populate sites different from the objects that they use to populate Appian. The answer is no. You're using the same objects, all the same, exactly the same objects. You're just picking 5. And those 5 are the ones that you get to show people on your Appian site. So nothing could be easier. This isn't an overhead headache. This is just a simple reduction and a streamlining of the user experience. So here's what one of the pages might look like. Here is Appian Sites pointing to records, which it didn't used to be able to do. And see how simple this would be. 5 tabs that look like this, dense with information, accessing records, tasks, and other things, is fully enough for many, maybe most, Appian users. I think that within a few years, this could be, because it's customized, because it's simple, because it's clean and attractive, I think this could be the most popular way to use Appian software. Oh, and it works great on mobile devices. It's a thrill to be able to announce features like this. Just one great thing after another. Let me stop for a moment and let's have a round of applause to the developers who put all these together. They do a great job. We've got an app market. You may know this. The app market is a good place to find the latest applications and other intellectual property that you can download and make part of your enterprise. Everybody's got an app market these days, so we're a little bit different. I want to briefly explain the difference. Whereas other app markets expect you to take what they've done as a finished product, we know you're not going to do that. Appian is all about being unique for you and allowing you to realize the unique character of your business. So the last thing we would ask you to do is accept somebody else's application just the way it is. Instead, this is a marketplace full of good starting points. They may have been somebody else's finish point, but it's your starting point. We expect you to make modifications, and that's great. It's just that maybe you'll get to where you're going a little bit faster if you start at somebody else's completion point. I know of a customer that goes here first before they do anything new on Appian for inspiration and for quick starts. This is a great resource. Please check it out. We do a lot to ensure that you'll succeed. We have a program, you may be familiar with it, called Appian Labs. Appian Labs allows us, in Appian Labs, we investigate the health of your application. We send you reports and statistics. We do diagnostics. It's a great program. A lot of you are using it, but because some are not, we took the diagnostic program out of it and we're distributing it for free. So even if you don't want to buy Appian Labs and if you don't need the personal help of one of Appian's architects, you can still benefit from the work we did to create this complex and useful diagnostic. It's called Health Check. You can have it. We're distributing it for nothing. We also have a kind of what we call the playbook, which is an instruction guide for how to deploy Appian, how to create your first Appian instance, how to roll out an Appian enterprise, maintain a center of excellence. We're also distributing that at no charge. And finally, we've got A-scores. A-scores are scores that we give to every Appian practitioner around the world from 1 to 100 to evaluate how experienced and proven they are in our technology. You may know, if you're familiar with A-scores, that we've got 3 certifications that we offer for people who have hit a score equal to 20, 40, and 60, which 60 is a really very high score. This bar chart shows you how much increase there has been in certified practitioners over the past year. Remember, by the way, that certified practitioners are people who have achieved one of those thresholds, and the majority of Appian practitioners have not reached one of those thresholds. So this is an impressive minority of the total community. But it's great to see it growing so much. And the black bar on the very top, those are platinum certified people. Those people are really skilled at Appian. So find one of them and have them run your project. We're introducing a new offering called Premier Support. Premier Support is great for those of you who have 4 monitors and are still unsatisfied. Premier Support includes a full-time developer who will help you with every major incident in the lifetime of your rollout, right? Dev to test, test to prod, upgrades, architectural changes. You will have a personal Appian engineer helping you through all of those stages. You will also have 24/7/365 support, and you will have guaranteed 15-minute reaction time to critical issues at any time of day, no matter what the day is. This is the best support package we've ever put together. And we're proud to offer that. It's part of our increased commitment to being mission critical for you. Every year we make a point of integrating with the latest technology. 2 years ago it was Google Glass. And last year, even though Appian World was 1 business day after the launch of the Apple Watch, we still had Apple Watch integrated last year. So this year, I'll get to this year in a moment. The reason we do this is because we want to demonstrate that anything you write in Appian is future-proof, that it will continue to work. When next year's hot devices come out, your application will work on those devices. And if 5 years from now we're all consuming our business devices through 3-dimensional holographic Oculus interfaces, then whatever you wrote today in Appian is going to work in one of those interfaces. We guarantee it. We will keep you fresh on the latest interfaces. And that defeats one of the major problems with custom application development, is that it tends to live in the era in which it was deployed. Not so if you build it on Appian. So this year, for lack of a hot device, we have procured a 300-pound robot named Baxter. Baxter, who you've walked by, if you've come to this room, you've walked by Baxter. He even has his own employee badge. He's standing out next to the escalators, and he's going to be performing a chemical experiment called a titration test. Yes, a titration test. He's going to be controlled by Appian processes, and he's going to be feeding back the results of the pH tests he's doing on his various beakers in real time, and you'll see them displaying as the experiment proceeds in an Appian record. So this is demonstrating, it's the Internet of Things, right? And one of those things is a 300-pound robot. So I hope that you'll come by and see Baxter at some point during this conference. He'll be out there for the rest of the time. Also, I will be here for the rest of the time. I'll be around the floor. I look forward to meeting you. I'd love to hear your stories. I'd like to get feedback. That's one of my favorite things about this conference. In the meantime, thank you and enjoy the show.